Welcome to another episode of Realign to Thrive. I'm Diana Lockett, and I'm really happy to welcome you into our studio today to meet this incredible guest. I have been following this person for quite a while. I wanted to say young man, which is really just giving away my age. Justin Michael Williams. Justin is an incredible pioneer in the personal development, spiritual growth area. He has been on stages with the likes of Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson. He's the author of an incredible book called Stay Woke. And Justin runs coaching programs to help people to recognize that they can achieve the life that they desire and that we're all here to create a collective global impact. What you do matters, who you are matters, what you say matters. And I'm really excited to say welcome, Justin, all the way from Bali. Thank you so much for being here today.
Diana, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. What a gift.
You are a gift, Justin. You and I have had a chat in the past. And one of the things that I loved talking about with you was the way that you're integrating your personal growth and spiritual growth practices into the work that you do. Tell us a little bit about how you became who you had to become to do the work that you do.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's for all of us, there's such a big journey that leads us to this place. But I think for me, the main thing, that I feel called to share in this moment is what surprises some people is I grew up in a pretty rough background. I grew up in a home literally with gunshot holes on the outside of my house. And my adaptation to growing up with that kind of trauma was becoming an overachiever, and the kind of chronic underbelly, that people don't see of when you're being an overachiever is you're doing everything, you're accomplishing everything, you're succeeding at everything, but there's this kind of shadow that is existing underneath that says that I'm only worth what I achieve, right? I'm only worth what I'm validated for. And so I went on that journey, right? And I graduated at the top of my class. I got a full ride scholarship to go to UCLA. I'm at the top of that. I start my own company. And I have this moment where I recognize that I had accomplished everything on the external that I had ever wanted to accomplish. Everything on the list I had checked off, but I was still miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I still felt just like that little boy who was in a home with gunshot holes outside of his house because I had never healed what was within. And so that had sent me on this journey, kind of also thanks to my overachieverness, to kind of figure out, okay, what else is there to life? There has to be more than just constantly achieving things and trying to manipulate things outside of myself. And it was not until I started to do the work of really understanding what it means to live from within to then be able to shift your external circumstances that my life started to really shift. And truly, it was the way that I'm here now. Like I was a marketing guy. Like I had a big marketing job, the whole thing. The way that I have now been teaching and doing all of this for the last decade is I just couldn't help but share what I was learning with people. I couldn't help it. I wanted everybody to know because I was like, I felt like I figured out this secret, And so, and so all that I did was in my marketing work with many of my clients, I started to like just sneak in little personal growth things. Because I realized the reason my marketing clients weren't successful had nothing to do with their marketing. It was because of fear. It was because of self-sabotage. It was because of shadow. It was because they didn't have a vision. And slowly over time, that went from being like 3% of what I did to, now 100%. And it's liberated me and gratefully, literally hundreds of thousands of people now around the world, which is still shocking for me to say, honestly. So.
What an incredible, I want to say an incredible story. And what's incredible about it is that you were committed to doing this work. You were committed to going inside. You were committed to doing the self-exploration. And I have to say to you, like just like me, like you are me cleverly disguised as you. I had hit all the milestones in my life and was very successful by society's standards. And yet there was an emptiness inside me that was calling me to come in and sit there. And I had to sit there for a very long time. You mentioned the word shadows. Can you explain for our audience who may not be familiar with what a shadow is?
Yeah, of course. So the way that I'll describe it is in this parallel. So a lot of us, when we're trying to grow or trying to change our lives or trying to advance ourselves in any way, we do what I will sometimes call light work. And I want to be very clear as I'm making this distinction, I'm not making one better than the other. I want us to get out of this binary way of thinking, but it takes both. So light work, we know. Light work is meditating, thinking positively, going to yoga, all the different things that we do, listening to podcasts to keep our minds right. If we only do that work when we're trying to grow without doing the shadow work, it's like driving with your foot fully on the gas and with your foot fully on the brake, with the emergency
Yes,
brake, trying
yes.
to accelerate, and then you get out of the car and you realize you're stuck in the same spot. And
Right.
we know that we're doing this and we need to do shadow work. If you're doing all this work on yourself, you're listening to podcasts, you're reading the books, you're doing the things, and then you look around and you say, why do I keep meeting these same kind of guys? Why do I keep ending up in these same kind of situations? And then we blame it on our astrology or our human design or whatever it is that the universe just keeps giving us this. But no, it's because we have our foot on the brake. So it doesn't matter how much you accelerate, you're not going to move. And so
Mm-hmm.
shadow work is taking your foot off of the brake, taking the emergency brake up. And the way that we do that, and the way that I define shadow for people to be very clear, is your shadow is anything in your life that is out of your light of awareness. And out of your light of awareness means like this: you think you have free will, you think you're moving around making choices, but really you're like a marionette puppet with invisible strings on your body. And the invisible strings are what are creating the patterns and moving you around. And so shadow work is not cutting the strings. Shadow work is getting to know the puppet master.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So well said. Good. Yeah. I love that. Can I ask you to go a little further and describe some of the shadow ranges that might be more common than not, that people may or may not be aware of? Just so, what does that marionette look like? What are some of the ranges that people may want to consider exploring?
Yeah. So shadow, the way that the shadow is in place, one of the easiest ways to see is if you've created an either or somewhere in your life. Okay. That's
Yeah.
like one of the first, there's many ways, but that's one of the easiest kind of red flags to look at. And we all have different either ors in our lives. All right. So for example, some of us say, I can either have a successful career or I can have a loving relationship. Right. Some of us don't have that either or. Others of us say, I can either have a successful career or I can have a healthy body. Right. So you can see how there's some people who live with that either or, and other people who live with another either or, because there are certain people in the world who have amazing relationships and amazing careers, and other people who don't, because they've created that. And when we create an either or in our mind, that becomes the X marks the spot that we create in our lives. We just keep hitting that mark. We keep choosing our life based on that, what we think is true. And so anywhere that you see an either or, the way that you start breaking into the shadow is you say, okay, if I was not living from this place of scarcity, and I knew that the energy of the universe was abundant and able to flow through me, then what would I do now? And so you shift from asking, what would it be to have an either or life, to what would it take to have a both and life? And this starts helping you break through your shadow in a really practical way. There are many other ways shadow comes up, which are like I talk about a lot in my book and is much deeper than we can talk about here. But I think that's an easy one for everybody watching to look at what's showing up in their life right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it reminds me, I think it's Marianne Williamson that often says, like, what would love do? And it doesn't mean that what's in front of you is going to be the most enjoyable, incredible, life affirming thing, but truly it is, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. And I personally love shadow work. I describe shadow as leaning in towards the disowned parts of ourselves that at some point we were told we're not welcomed into the world. And we segregate, we separate, we create the duality, we forget our wholeness, that we forget that we're complete. And then we start resourcing ourselves outside of ourselves to find others to complete us, things to complete us. And yes, 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 I love your definition. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back and talk with Justin in just a moment. Welcome back. Today we're here with Justin Michael Williams, who is an incredible spiritual teacher, guide, someone who's not afraid to step into the messiness of life and to look for the gifts and shine the light on the dark. It's all part of our human journey. Welcome back, Justin. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you. Yep.
Ooh, Justin gave us a little bit of a leeway there, a little bit of a segue into what I want to talk about. Justin is a singer-songwriter, and I've had the privilege of listening to a lot of his music. And I also heard a bit of your backstory about getting into music. Can you share a bit about that, please?
Yeah, it was a really interesting journey, and actually has a lot to do with the shadow because,
Mm.
what happened in my life when I was younger. I was, the only boy in my home growing up. My two sisters that lived in the house with me. I have two half brothers that didn't live with me, and in my house, my family wanted me to be just the macho guy. It was just the vision that my parents had for my life. And what was naturally flowing through me was a little bit more of the flowing creative artistic energy. And my parents wanted me to be the sports athletic guy. And so for my whole life, I would be in my room, like wanting to do music and sing and dance and do all this stuff. And my parents were putting me in football and basketball and baseball and not really allowing me to cultivate that skill. And so fast forward, into adulthood, and I've done all the overachieving. I've gone to school. I start this marketing company. I've become, kind of athletic. And my grandmother, who I was very close to, suddenly got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer very unexpectedly. And the doctors told her she only had a couple months to live. And they said she had 2 or 3 months. And when this happened, it was a huge shock to our whole family. She was 67, which I consider young, visibly healthy, And so I flew home to the Bay Area to be with her, to where I'm from in a town called Pittsburgh, California. And I walked in the door and she literally asked me a question that changed the trajectory of my whole life. She looked at me and she said, "If you were in my shoes and you knew you were going to die in 2 months, what would you do?" And I look at her and I'm thinking, what? Like, I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not dying. I mean, you're dying. I mean, guess we're all dying, And she just said, "Get quiet, get still." And what she really said was, "Do that meditation thing you always talk about. And we could sit here all day because I don't want you to open your lips until you're ready to tell me the truth." And I just was like, whoa, like she was really serious, And so I said, okay. And I closed my eyes and I went right in. And before I could even think, I just blurted out, I would quit everything and I would record an album. And my grandmother looks at me and she goes, "I know." and and it was just, amazing. And she made me look at her and promise her that I would do it. And I'll tell you, like, I had never been in a recording studio. I didn't play any instruments. I'd never written a song. And so I let all these reasons come up in me, like, I can't do it. And she goes, "I don't care. I don't care. You knew as a little kid that this was a part of your path. And because of the shadow of how you grew up, because of your trauma, because of your conditioning, you convinced yourself that it wasn't important. I'm reminding you how important it is. You don't have to run away from this anymore. You can give yourself permission." And so here we are. I put out my album 3 years later with a lot of shadow work and a lot of therapy and a lot of moving through fear. And the album, to all of our surprise, charted in the top 20 of the iTunes charts. And my life changed overnight. And now I have the gift of being able to integrate and use music in my work. I say kind of the way music is used in church. I use it as like the music, the sugar that makes the medicine go down with the different teachings.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, I love using music as well in the work that I do because it really helps to create the energy to move the groups through where they're meant to go through. And thank you to your grandmother. She sounds like such a beautiful, beautiful, lovely person who so much loved you. And when you were speaking about her, I had chills everywhere. So I feel like she's in our conversation. She's in
She's
the room
always
with us
here.
today.
She's
Yeah.
always here. Yeah, she's always here.
And you dedicated a song to her too, didn't you? You wrote a song for her?
Yeah, I did. I've written 2 songs for her now, and but my first song that I put out was a song that I wrote for her, and this was a song that blew everything up for me, and it's a song called "Here with Me." And the song and the music video, it really just poured through me as like a thank you and a love note to her, and a lot of people connected with it because I think, many of us have had people that we've lost and who we wish were here in the physical plane, even though we can feel them. And so that song's for everybody who lost someone.
Yeah. And then you have a second one called Believe, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Believe is the other
Yeah.
one is, yeah.
Yeah. That song came to me at a very critical time in my life and really spoke a message that I needed to hear. So I want to thank you for very much. Thank you personally for that song.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana.
And now the other thing, and for those of you who don't know Justin's music, go ahead and you can find it on iTunes, right?
Anything.
iTunes,
Yeah.
Spotify, anywhere
Anywhere
you
that
get your
there's music.
music.
Yeah.
It's beautiful music. The lyrics are soul touching. The beat is amazing, incredible. Your voice is outstanding. And do you play any instruments now?
I do actually. I just started in the pandemic. It's like my new pandemic talent, or that I've cultivated is started learning how to play guitar and piano, and so
Hmm.
now I'm able to play along and sing a little bit. So it's been a really big journey and really challenging, actually. So
Well, I'm going to say, is there a little overachiever coming through again with the piano and the guitar? Not just one instrument, but two. And yet I
yeah,
can't wait to hear you. I can't wait to hear you playing along with your songs because you clearly have musical talent. And what a gift your grandmother gave you to awaken that possibility in you.
thank you. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
recovering overachiever. Sometimes it comes in handy, but sometimes I got to
Yeah.
keep it at bay. So there
Me
you
too. Me too.
go.
And what a great message for anybody watching. You know, your biology or your biography doesn't have to become your biology. Your history doesn't have to become who you are. That there's work to be done, there's no doubt. But you notice as we listen to Justin, as he speaks about his past, there's no blame, there's no judgment. He speaks about it from a place of real power and strength because you've been willing to go in and do the work. And I know shadow work is something we do our whole life. Spiritual maturity is something we do until we take our last breath. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I see in front of me someone who's so committed to that work and such a guide, a mentor, a leader for millennials today. And I know that that's going to take me right into asking you to speak about the coaching programs that you do, because you have a really big following. You're impacting a lot of people around the areas of inclusivity, diversity, acceptance, shadow, spiritual growth. Tell us a little bit about what those programs look like.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a beautiful journey. And, one of the things that I'm the most proud of is just last year, we launched my foundation, which is called the Dream Bigger Foundation. And what I was realizing was as I was teaching all around the world, there were so many people who wanted access to this transformational work, but who couldn't afford it because coaching programs and retreats at spiritual centers and all this stuff could be so expensive. And so I kept finding myself getting sponsors, getting funding, or giving stuff away. And at the end of the year, a couple of years ago, we realized that we gave 50% of everything that we did that year away. 50% of everything was given to people in need. And I said, hold on a second. If we're giving to people in need, like we should make this a thing, And so we moved everything over into our foundation called the Dream Bigger Foundation. And I'm so grateful to say that we have programs that teach people in mindfulness, in overcoming anxiety and stress, in coming together across what are perceived as divides, and ultimately in learning how to access what your big dream is for your life and for the world, and how to step into action to doing it. And now more than 50% of everything that we do is given away for people on scholarships. There's no barrier to entry, no matter what you're going through in your life. And we have a truly diverse community, people of all backgrounds, all identities, all genders. And we truly believe in a world where we can all come together. And it's beautiful to be able to see that world starting to exist inside of our community. So anybody who wants to come in, you're welcome in with an open embrace to be able to step into a diverse community where people are coming together to transform their lives and
Amen.
transform the world, because it can't just be about your life, right? It has to be about how it's impacting everything around us as well. So
And that's this whole conversation is how do we contribute to a bigger purpose as we come together and acknowledge and co-create and celebrate and do the hard work and then make it available to others. Fantastic. Now, I know you put out a book maybe 2 years ago now called Stay Woke. Is it 2 years
yeah,
ago? Tell
yeah,
us
it
about
is.
your
It's
writing
over
journey.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, what's really cool is I'm just actually, as we're recording this today, I'm just finishing my second book, which is
Oh,
wild to think of because I never imagined I would write even a first one. And the writing journey has been amazing for me. So my book is called Stay Woke, a meditation guide for the rest of us. And the reason I wrote the book was because I was going around teaching in communities that were typically not having all the access to meditation that would happen. And the questions that people would ask were so different than questions that people were asking in, I'll just say classically more privileged communities, right? And so when I was teaching at like a big festival or a conference or a yoga conference or whatever, those questions were very different than when I was teaching in the South Side of Chicago, right?
Right.
And so I was actually looking for a reference to give those people, like something to give them that would help them move forward in their journey of meditation. And I couldn't find anything that was speaking directly to the issues that people in the world were facing. And so then I was like, oh no, I have to write it. And
I
so
love the, oh no, but of
yeah,
course you did because you saw that it needed to be done and it was waiting for you to do it.
yeah.
That's
And I
why there's
pushed it
nothing
away
out
for
there
a little
because you
bit.
hadn't done it yet.
Yeah, and I pushed it away. I didn't want it. I tried to give it to somebody else. And then finally I said, okay, universe, I got it. And so I wrote the book, and it honestly has been one of the biggest gifts of my life, and has helped so many people and had me fall in love with the written word and writing in a way that I never imagined that I could. And I think the big lesson for people is, we often push things away because we think the dream is too big for us. And that was what I was doing. I didn't see myself as somebody who was even worthy of writing a book or being an author. That was way bigger than what I had imagined for myself. But the universe or God or spirit or whatever you would call it was like, I'm trying to give this to you. Open yourself and let it pass through you. And once I did that, my everything, has just shifted in such a big way. So, and now I'm writing a second one, which is wild.
So tell us about your second one, if you can give a little bit of it. Do you have a title yet?
Yeah, I do have a title actually. So am I allowed to tell you the title? I don't know that I'm allowed to tell you the title yet,
Okay.
but I'll tell you
When
what
is
the
it
book is
come?
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell us what it's about and
the
when we
book is
can start
coming
looking for
out
it.
in February of 2023, Black History Month
Okay.
2023. And what the book is actually about is about this phenomenon that we have in the world that is othering and discriminating on the basis of the color of someone's skin, and what the world could be like and the future that we could step into if we could use the science and the anthropological studies and our spiritual practice to overcome this phenomenon that we call in our modern society racism or discrimination, and how
Amazing.
that actually step forward, how we do it, and how we use our spiritual practice to really end racism and not just keep talking about it or learning about it or fighting it, but ending it. And I say to people, if we are able to accomplish, I'll say it this way, Diane, my work, what I really do in my work is I try my best to make the impossible possible. What you think is impossible in your life, making that impossible. Making that possible. What you think is impossible in the world, making that possible. If we can make something as impossible or seemingly as impossible as living on Mars happen, we can make ending racism happen. And if we land
Yes,
on
yes,
Mars before we end racism, we have an issue.
yes,
so,
yes,
so that's
yes.
where I'm going. Yeah.
And I love everything about that book. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I can't wait to read it. And when you launch it, I want you to come back and we're going to have another chat about it.
Oh,
And we just need to have this conversation and not wait for these crises that happen in between and then pretend that it's gone away,
yeah.
which is really what happens in the world today. So thank you for doing that. I think that you're the perfect and right person to write this book. And
Oh,
I really think the timing, you're absolutely right. The timing is so prime for it right now. And we need this book out in the world before we land on Mars. Thank you very much. You're
yes.
right about
Otherwise, we're going
that.
to be a hot mess there. And I'm co-writing
We're
it
going to be a
actually, which
hot
is
mess
really
there.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
co-writing the book with a woman named Shelley Tagelski, who is a white Jewish woman. And so we're
okay.
really co-writing the book, modeling this experience of what it
Yeah.
means to really come together and integrate across so many divides, And so it's I can't wait for people to get it. If you search on my website when this comes out, maybe you'll see a little something about it, but we'll be announcing the title and the cover and stuff really soon.
Can't wait. Can't wait. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, it's Justin Michael Williams, and it is with great honor
that I invite you to something that our community does together every other Sunday morning called The Kingdom. The Kingdom is spiritual church. I want you to imagine if church, Super Soul Sunday, and a TED Talk had a baby and then came together and created an incredible event with live music and with wisdom teachings coming from many traditions to help bring us together, because spiritual people deserve church too, right? So come join us at justinmichaelwilliams.com/thekingdom every other Sunday, and you can see the recordings on our podcast, the Kingdom Podcast, as well. Much love, everybody. We rise together.
All right, Justin, thank you again for being here. I love everything that you're bringing into the world. I follow you. I celebrate you. I think that you are absolutely a leader for not just millennials, but for everybody in the world today. Your vision, your message, your essence is absolutely essential in the world today. So I'm really grateful you're here. I'm really grateful you're writing a second book. And I want to ask you My pleasure. I want to ask you a final question. So my show is called Realign to Thrive. So if you had a message for people today on how they can realign to thrive, no matter what they're going through, what would your message be?
It's a very simple one, okay? And it's that fear and faith are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't mean faith as it is just religious or spiritual faith. I mean the larger definition of faith, which includes religion and spirituality. And faith means a complete confidence and belief in something. That's what it is in the dictionary, complete confidence and belief in something. And fear and faith are the exact same thing. And most people say, okay, that sounds like a good quote, but what do you really mean? What I mean is this: both fear and faith require you to believe in something you can't see and that hasn't happened yet. That's it. That's literally it. That's all fear is, and that's all faith is. You're believing in something you can't see and that hasn't happened yet. Believing in fear is believing that our possibilities are limited by our circumstances. Believing in faith says that our possibilities are not limited by our circumstances, that what we see around us in our circumstances don't limit the possibility of who and what we can become as an individual and as a collective. And you're going to believe in something either way. You're going to believe in something. So what are you choosing to believe in? And I'm using the word choice. And this is why our internal practices are so important, because it aligns us, it realigns us, like you're talking about it, with what it is that actually helps us thrive, which is believing in faith. And so this is what Realign to Thrive really means to me, is realigning with what makes us thrive as individuals and as a collective. And this is not just some blind spiritual bypass concept. Every movement forward in life, every movement forward in your family, every movement forward in society has happened because some people chose to believe in faith. They chose to look around at their circumstances and say, even though this is what I'm seeing around me, I believe that there's more. And so imagine if women of the past didn't believe that there was more outside of their circumstances. And yes, I know we have a long way to go, but the life that we're living now was impossible to people of just 100 years ago or less. Imagine if slaves looked around them and said, this is all we've got. Imagine if the queer community looked around and said, I guess we got to stay in hiding because this is all that's realistic. I'm not here to help you see what's realistic. I'm here to help you make the impossible possible, to see what's possible in your life if you just believe. And so just keep realigning yourself to faith every day, to remind yourself of what's true, to step past the fear, and that's what's going to help you thrive the most in your life.
Unbelievable. We are going to be clipping this part and sharing it on social before the episode launches, because that is so much wisdom. And as you're saying it, I'm hearing fear and I'm hearing faith, and I'm seeing right in the middle, this area where choice lies. And yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Justin. It is such a pleasure to have you here. Do you mind sharing with our audience where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm very easy to find online. If you just search Justin Michael Williams anywhere, whether that's on Spotify, on Google, on my website, that's how you find me, justinmichaelwilliams.com. Lots of beautiful things to welcome you into this loving community. And thank you, Diana, for this incredible work that you're doing. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you and all of you.
Thank you. And I can't wait to see where I get to see you next, right? Like I'm just following you, and I feel so much excitement about what you're bringing into the world. So thank you for the work you do. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Wasn't that a great episode? I am so excited to bring to you heart-centered leaders who are making global impact in the world as a beautiful imprint for all of us that we too can make a difference. Until we meet again, I'm Diana Lockett, and know that you can always realign to thrive.